Scientists predicted the impact of carbon emissions in the 19th century, and the phrase global warming had been common in environmental circles for years. But the Earth Summit marked a turning point. The moment when climate change officially transitioned from a scholarly topic to a global public concern. In the years ahead, mounting evidence and calls for action would clash repeatedly with politics, particularly in the United States. There would be climate change protests, campaigns, and debates, not to mention that ultimate sign of collective angst, a string of Hollywood disaster movies. As a scientist, I never doubted the urgency of the issue, but I still struggled alongside everyone else to find a meaningful response. The irony of flying to far-flung field sites in places like Africa and Alaska did not escape me. I wasn't exactly going to cancel out burning all that jet fuel by carpooling to the airport. But beyond such hazy worries, the climate problem felt remote at first, alarming but intangible, like a diagnosis in want of a symptom. My reaction was typical. When it comes to climate change, there is a glaring disconnect between what we know is happening and what we seem able or willing to do about it. Longtime climate campaigner George Marshall explored this disparity in his excellent and aptly titled book, Don't Even Think About It. He noted how the human brain is perfectly capable of simultaneously understanding and ignoring abstract threats. When consequences seem distant or gradual, the rational part of our mind simply files them away for future reference and rarely triggers the more instinctive, emotional pathways associated with quick action. We do better responding to physical threats, such as spear thrusts and charging lions, the sorts of immediate problems that our ancestors evolved with. Marshall's book ends with a laundry list of strategies for bridging that mental gap, many of which rely on something else the human brain is known for: storytelling. When complex ideas are attached to a narrative, they immediately become more relatable. There is a reason why Plato framed so many of his philosophical dialogues around the drama of the trial of Socrates, and why Carl Sagan chose to teach astrophysics from the glowing deck of an imaginary spaceship. Stories engage parts of the brain left untouched by facts alone, releasing chemicals that demonstrably change the way we think, feel, and remember. Learning about climate change is no different, and much of how we understand and act upon it will ultimately boil down to stories. Those we tell, and, in another sense, those that it tells to us. My own perspective has shifted dramatically over the course of my career, transformed from detachment to utter fascination by narratives. Not necessarily the ones found in headlines or policy debates, but by those playing out in some place more fundamental, the lives of the plants and animals I've studied. Like biologists everywhere, I've watched climate change leap from background to forefront in project after project, because while people may have spent the past 30 years struggling to even think about a response, every other species on the planet has simply been getting on with it. Their reactions remind us that the outcome of every future climate scenario, no matter how complex or contentious, relies ultimately on one thing: how individual plants and animals respond to change. If every living thing on Earth got along just as well in any situation, then tweaking the weather wouldn't matter in the slightest. Conditions for life, however, are anything but universal. Biodiversity stems from specialization. Millions of species intimately adapted to the nuances of their own particular niche. Altering those conditions forces a response, and when that alteration comes quickly, it can restructure whole ecosystems. The speed of climate change is a large part of what makes it a crisis. But for scientists, farmers, bird watchers, gardeners, backyard naturalists, and anyone with an interest in nature, it also creates an opportunity. Never before have people been in a position to witness such a radical biological event, and if the early results are any indication, it has a great deal to teach us. Because just as the planet is changing faster than anyone expected, so too are the plants and animals that call it home. This book is an exploration.